Good evening, and you're very welcome to episode 10 of the fifth season of the Women's Premier Division podcast here on finalwhistle.ie for the League of Ireland, of course. I always seem to butcher the intro, Aaron, but it's, of course, Aaron Clark with us as always. I'm Breffney Early, and for the next hour or so, we'll be chatting all things League of Ireland Women's Premier Division, and it's been a busy week. We recorded last week's show a little bit earlier, so we missed a couple of things that happened last week, like a couple of retirements. Louise Quinn has hung up her international boots. Niamh Fahey stepped away from football completely, and we also lost a League of Ireland player over the weekend in terms of her career. Colleen Kennedy has indicated she won't be playing for Cork City anymore. She has moved back to the States. So it's been a big week off the pitch, but some pretty impressive stuff on the pitch as well. Sligo Rovers picked up their first points. And Aaron, we had talked about going to the game. It didn't happen because just logistics and all of that, but it would have been a nice game to be at. Great result for them. Great result for Athlone. They won 3-0 in Galway. We're going to talk about the goal because everyone's talking about the goal. It wasn't a goal. It wasn't even close to a goal, but it was given. So we might maybe talk about referees. We saw Shamrock Rovers scoring some nice goals in the bowl, but everything was in the air because the ground, as you're going to tell us, was pretty terrible through most of that game. But yeah, busy week. How was your week?
Yeah, it was interesting. Nice to actually get back to a game of football, considering I hadn't got one for a couple of weeks. And I was actually thinking, I was sort of Saturday afternoon as we were communicating back and forth throughout the games when I was in the bowl. I was like, I actually could have been in Sligo, and considering what was happening, I was sort of thinking to myself, if I'd have gone to Sligo and then Peamount, and then would Peamount have won that game? And it was just everything about the nostalgia about it. Like it's why we love the league, in the sense of we said last week Sligo needed a good performance, and then we were chatting about off air, and it's just mad when you think, would it have happened? Would it have, a lot of goals, lots of fun. As you say, two legends stepping away from the game as well. There's not many players left in the Ireland 100 club. I think Denise O'Sullivan is the only active player now within the Irish 100 club, and football is all guns blazing as we look to have some fun going through this next couple of hours. Couple of managers a little bit unhappy, a little bit frustrated with pitches, as I said, when Colleen O'Neill frustrated with the bowl. But some managers will be very, very happy over the weekend, and I think there was a couple of standout performances as well.
Yeah, the funny thing, you talk about managers happy and unhappy. Last week, I spoke to a few people. Now, you did mention Denise Sullivan is the only one in the 100 club. Katie McCabe is like 5 away. Do you know what I mean? Like, she's going to be there relatively soon, I'd imagine, probably in the next 12 months, comfortably, injuries aside. But
let me correct you. She could be there by October.
Yeah, 100%.
They've two games, one the end of this month, one at the start of June, 2 games in the States, and then potentially playoffs October time, could be at 100 club. And then you're talking, Rouge is not far behind either.
89, I think, according to our stats, yeah. So will she make the 11? I don't know, to be quite honest with you. It's
like, loves her. Tara Ward seems to love her.
Yeah. But should she make the 100? I'm not convinced 100% that we should be giving caps to players who maybe aren't as productive in over 90 minutes. I think Roisha can give you a good 45, maybe even 60, but does she have it in the legs to give you a 90 minutes anymore? I don't think so. But then you never know.
I think she does. I don't think she has the ability to give you 90 minutes consistently. I thought against Wales in the playoff, I thought she was one of Ireland's best players, and stood up in the 2 games, first game in particular. But like, the problem is and she was on the bench this weekend for Rovers. How much is that Achilles tendon got left? How much has the body got left? And that's the biggest question. And that's why we're looking at these next generation of players. Who's going to be the next player to step up into an Ireland squad and sort of kick on from the League of Ireland? And I think we're starting to see more and more youngsters putting that hand up and saying, I'm ready, I can play. And with a couple in Wexford, a couple in Shells, a couple of youngsters in Treaty, Galway, they're all the clubs are starting to show their hand this year. And it's great to see the youngsters really taking over.
And it's happening at every club, which is even better. Like, we're seeing it right through the league. Like, we saw some really outstanding performances from Sligo at the weekend as well. We'll talk about that a bit more. Maybe let's go to Galway for the start point. Obviously, the live game on TV last weekend. Top two of the top 3 teams in the league coming into the game We expected a battle. We didn't really see it because Athlone kind of just dominated early. Great goal from Isabel Ryan to open the score.
Can I stop you for a second?
Okay.
Can we talk about the predictions from last week?
Should we? I can't even remember what we said.
I said Athlone, you said Galway.
Well, I
But
selected.
the thing is, Breffney, if like, even as you're going to go through, I'll let you go back through it now in a second, right? If I'd asked you, if I'd have said to you, okay, Breffney, you have 5 chances to win a prize, I don't think you'd have put 3-0 as a scoreline.
No, never, because I think both teams are so closely linked. But I think we're going to get to that because some of the defending from Galway, overall the game was fairly balanced. But I think Galway let themselves down for the first 2 goals with defending massively, and the third one just wasn't a goal. Like, it didn't cross the line, or even I don't know how it was given. Referees getting a bit of stick for it, but I think probably you mentioned off air as well. It's really the assistant referee on the far side gives the goal. Like, I don't even know what angle they could possibly have been watching that from that looked like it crossed the line, because it wasn't even close. Okay, it hit the post and the crossbar, but like, it can't end up where it ended up if it's crossed the line. Like,
no, absolutely not. And do you know what the frustrating part of it is we're not giving Jay Merrin any credit for that save. Everybody's talking about because of the goal. Merrin is getting no credit for actually getting a hand to it. And that's the frustrating or the sad thing about it, is that the keeper's pulled off a worldie. Yes, the officials have had a mare and they've had a howler in that situation. And like, the one thing is if you look at where their angle is, where the assistant is angled over the far side, like, you can see it comes off the crossbar, then it comes off the post. But like, the only thing I can think of is Merrin's body is in his way. Is in his way.
I don't know.
It's still not even that close to say that it's a 50-50. Should it be given? Should it not be given? The ball doesn't even cross the line, and that's the worst part of it. If it was close, and he says, "Okay, it was slightly obstructive, I think it's over," you make an argument. But there's zero arguments here, and that's the worst part about it. There's zero arguments to say this should be a goal. Like, and
even the disbelief on Jane Merrin's face when it's given should, like, you can tell by players' reactions. We'll talk about that a bit more, maybe with Emma Hansbury for a challenge and Karen Duggan later on. But you can tell by players' reactions when they know they've gotten away with it, or they know they've been unfairly awarded against them. Like, they're fairly honest, most people. And you can tell by her reaction, she's in sheer disbelief on the pitch, going, what the hell happened there? Let's talk about the first goal, though. Lovely move down the left-hand side. Great cross. Isabel Ryan looks like she's miscontrolled it, but it just evades the defender's legs. And then a little kind of I'm not even sure how to call it. She kind of clips it back into what was the near post originally for her. Very strange strike technique, but it kind of caught Jane Merrin out. And really, the defenders probably should have cleared it before she had the opportunity to do that.
100%. I'm going to give you an opportunity here to win a prize.
Up. Go on.
Right?
Yep.
You're not allowed to look at any stats. You're not allowed to look at anything. When's the last time Galway United have kept a clean sheet either in a league game or a cup game?
Don't know is a short answer to that.
All Ireland Cup final.
Last year. Middle of last year.
17th of August last year was the last time they kept a clean sheet.
That surprises me. To be honest.
If you look at the results this season in the league, beat DLR 5-1, Bowes 3-1. The Peamount game was called off. Rovers game was 3-2. 1-0 with Wexford. 3-1 with Sligo. Cliftonville in the All Ireland Cup they conceded, and then the 3 goals here.
But even looking at the league table, they've conceded 9 goals in their opening 6 games. Ironically, like 50% more than Peamount, who everyone thinks is having a poor season by their own standards, and Galway have conceded 3 more than Peamount 6. Like, it's interesting. But could it be a problem that cuts them out of the league?
The scary side of it is that while they've conceded 9 goals, they've only dropped points in 2 games. That's the scary side of it, in the sense of, is like, what happens if they hit a team, another team who click, like we'll talk about later on when the game this weekend, playing a team who's scoring buckets of goals in games, you'd have concerns. And like, even when you look at the first goal, it's nearly 6s and 7s, and we haven't mentioned the second goal even. And I initially said to you, when we were chatting about it before we even come on here, we were talking a little bit about the keeper's positioning and stuff like that, and then having to try to go through the Athlone 2 players. But when we actually decided to, okay, let's have a little look at it, break it down a little bit more. Like the analysis is scary when you look at the different angles, considering there's Jay Merrin.
The angle from behind the goal, and then the last angle they show on the clip, which is kind of sideways on from the goal. The Galway defense en masse, including the goalkeeper, take 2 or 3 steps out, and they just leave an absolutely massive space with two Athlone players in there. Maddie Gibson, who does get the final touch, and also and Kaylee Shine. The two of them are just standing there. Merrin has
it wasn't. It was Gibson's corner. They gave Gibson the goal, saying it went in directly from the corner.
Sorry. Oh, okay. Apologies. There was 2 players there. I thought it was Maddie Gibson. Oh, of course took the corner.
No, I think one of them was Kelly. One of them was Kelly Brady. I initially thought that it come off one of them 2 that I was there, but then when you watch it back, Merrin sort of, when she steps forward, can't get anything. But like if you have a player in the front post there, that's an easy opportunity to clear that. If you've got a player even sitting, like the first thing that I'd said to you when we were looking at it was the outs with the in swinger. Were they expecting the breeze to maybe hold it a little bit, and then all of a sudden the entire, like there's the 6 or 7 of them that are caught wrong foot going the wrong way, and you never see that. And like even when the frame freezes when the ball is in the net, like there's nearly 4 Galway players standing within
standing looking
a
at
meter or 2 of each other.
I don't want to get into individuals and highlighting things, but when you look back, even you probably have to look back at the actual broadcast rather than the highlights. But the like the player at the front post takes 2 or 3 steps forward. That's all. Just 2 or 3 steps forward, anticipating something short. Doesn't happen. Goes over her head. She just turns and is looking helplessly back at it. The 2 centre backs take a step or 2 forward. Goalkeeper takes a step or 2 forward, and then everybody's scrambling. Well, the goalkeeper's scrambling to get back. The defenders don't even bother, which is the biggest problem for me. If you're Phil Trill looking at that, yeah, it's poor defending, but it's the reaction just does not happen at all. And so expecting not to concede goals when you're a little bit asleep for set pieces, because we all know the danger that Athlone possess. They've scored goals for fun for a couple of years now. When you've got a player of Maddie Gibson's quality on the pitch, or Kelly Brady, you're gonna have opportunities to score. So with Athlone, you have to be on it all the time, or they absolutely will make you pay. And that's the quality at the top of the table. And I suppose that just came through in spades the other day.
Well, like the thing for me is like, yes, Athlone were much better side on the night, but it was actually quite an enjoyable game. It was, it was a very good game. And I think when we look at TG Carr, some of the games that TG Carr have got this year, the Shells versus Bows game was very good, very entertaining. This was an entertaining game. Like, yes, there was times where I thought officiating in the second half could have been a lot better. I thought it could have been like the one where Merrin comes out on the Athlone player, and there's not even a free kick. There's not even a free kick given. I'm thinking, is she going to book, or is a potential red card? It's similar to the Bonnie McKeon that Amber Hardy one for Wexford against Wexford for Sligo, and referees just waves play on, and I'm like, wow. But it was a really, really good game, and the biggest thing for me is I'm curious to see how Galway react. Like if you look at Galway this season, they've dropped points at home against Sligo Rovers, and now they've dropped points at home against Athlone. And when you look at Galway at home been very strong the last couple of years, and that's the thing about it. And I would expect them to sort of have that bit of a reaction and have that bit of a comeback. And like I think Phil Trill will be watching this game back. He probably watched it back twice already, I'd say, at this stage. And when they're in training this week, when they're reviewing it, I wouldn't be surprised if there's things they look at and they think, okay, we probably should have done a lot better. But on the other side, I know we've given Merrin some praise for the save for the goal that was given. But what a save from the Athlone goalkeeper. Can't remember who she denied. Tipped the ball over the crossbar from a long range effort, and I think 2 really good goalkeepers. But it's a night to forget for Galway, and Athlone have showed this to me this season that they're capable of doing that. They were very good against Treaty second half in particular, very good against DLR second half in particular. And like as we said last week, Athlone still have players to come back. They're going to make them stronger. With the Champions League coming up, there's no doubt they're going to try and strengthen even further. And I think this Athlone side of it, and I hate to say this because I hate to say it so early in the season because I know you're going to give me abuse over it, but this Athlone team are going to be there or thereabouts at this season competing with Shelbourne. They're not going to be down where I said, what did I say, fourth? Not a hope.
You're already reneging on your predictions pre-season, and it's only 6-7 games in for most teams. I love it. In terms of the other games, let's maybe take a look around. And you mentioned Shamrock Rovers there, so let's go maybe to that game. You were at it in the DLR in the bowl. Biggest talking point, some cracking goals from Shamrock Rovers, but the biggest talking point, possibly the pitch.
Yeah, to me, it doesn't look much better. Yes, it shows there's a little bit more grass on it in spots, but there's still the same sort of holes and same sort of condition. Like, I don't think any game should be played on that right now. I don't even think usually men should be played on it. And it's not even just saying.
The rugby season did finish a week or two ago. Mm-hmm. So, and the weather has been spectacular the last 10 days, 5 days. So you can expect it to improve.
A couple of weeks, it should make massive improvement if the weather is good. But for me, right now, my biggest concern, and it's a concern that I have every game that's played on there, not just from a DLR point of view, from a UCD point of view, from an opposition point of view, is I don't want to see anybody coming out with a bad injury, and that's my only concern. Is somebody gets hurt, and then we're talking about that, and we're talking about how it could have been prevented. In terms of the game itself, and I said to you off air, I'm not going to go into the ins and outs of it because I don't have both sides of the fact, so I'm not going to go into it. But I will say, I said to you last week that I thought there was a potential that this game could have been at in Tallaght instead. There was a bit of talk about it. I don't have both sides of the story, so I'm not going to really go into it because it'd be unfair. Colleen O'Neill sort of was critical of it with me post game, but I don't have the DLR side to sort of really go in and say what's actually happened. But on the pitch, Rovers are the better side by a lot. Yes, DLR had some early possession, apart from really Michelle Doonan with a long range effort when Katie Keane was off our line first half. They put Rovers limited them.
It was ambitious.
It was ambitious, and Rovers' defense was very good. You're probably thinking when the first goal does come, Rovers might be getting a little bit frustrated that they hadn't scored at that stage. Joy Ralph had a couple of first-time efforts that just went over the bar, but I asked Emily Corbett after the game, and she said to me it was 100% a shot, 100% a cross. She was honest enough to say that, and it's just deep and it just didn't control it and spilled it into the net, and then
it was very unfortunate for me, and particularly given a couple of minutes earlier she'd pulled off an unbelievable point blank save from Emily Corbett. And we're just not seeing the consistency from Eve that we've come to know over the last decade. She's been absolutely probably one of the top two, if not the top goalkeeper consistently in the league for the last decade. Niamh Reid-Burke is the only other person in the conversation as far as I'm concerned in terms of consistency over a prolonged period of time. But we're just seeing that consistency maybe drop a little bit for Eve, and it's kind of hard to watch stuff like that first goal when you know what she has been capable of over the last 10 years.
100%, and like, especially as you've just said there, the save she makes from Emily Corbett is unbelievable, and it's such a close range effort. And then the second goal, a bit of a just comes off. Ashla means fuck going in. Multiple Rovers players in the vicinity. I don't think Mean could do very much about it, but she did redeem herself with her first senior goal, and it was a really nice finish. She showed a lot of composure from that through ball from Rachel Doyle, and then when she went around Katie Keane, it was a nice finish. The only thing I would say, looking back at it, she slips through that gap too easy, and Aoife Brophy probably had a very, very good game for Shamrock Rovers going forward, and it's the one where she probably think could have got that step quicker to get back and prevent that. But like, it was a nice finish, but like then we're going to talk about the bad side of the
You had a question mark about whether Katie Keane could have got back and done more, but I just think in that situation the ball through is just fabulous.
It's unbelievable.
Finds her perfect, and just a touch just takes her far enough wide that Katie Keane is less than 50% likely to save that. I don't think you can put any fault at her on her side of things for the goal. I think 50-50 against one-on-one, you backed forward almost every time, and the keeper saves it like Badana did in the early exchanges. Fair enough, but
the funny thing is, and I'm not saying this to be disrespectful here when I say this, you're backing a kid who's never scored a senior goal, and she showed so much confidence there, and that's, to me, is what's probably impressive here, in the sense of, when I say not be disrespect, that she's a kid, she's a lot of inexperience, hasn't played an awful lot of senior football, and she showed glimpses last year of how good she can be playing for Wales. But to have that composure and to finish, for me, it was a
Now, I'm just going to question something because the commentary said it on thing, and you're saying it now. We have her down, and FAI Connect has her down as scoring a goal against Sligo last year in the showgrounds. So
I will have to check that.
I don't know if it was her first goal. And speaking of commentary, like when you can't pronounce Emily Corbett's name, her being the league's top scorer a couple of years back, it's a bit strange. Like Emily Corbett. I know it's only enunciation rather than pronunciation, but it's a bit like the commentary in LOI TV this week. It's a painful listen. I actually ended up watching most of the games without commentary because it was just, and I watched all six. Live at the time, 3 on the screen here in my office, in my little dungeon, and it was, it was painful. I really enjoyed the Treaty girls. I've been enjoying them at it for a while. I think Treaty do their social media really well, and there's a video I've got down to watch later on about they took one of the
hurling,
and I'm so excited to watch that, and I love that kind of content because it gets outside the club as well. It creates a little persona about these people. You get a bit more about their personality, and Treaty are expert at that this year. I think they've really, I'm really impressed with Treaty. On the pitch, they've improved exponentially. Yes, there's an investment there. There's a focus on the women's game that we don't maybe see in some of the men's clubs, but the social media output is phenomenal. I think the halftime in particular, I know I said this to you in real time watching the games. I think you had it on while you were in the bowl. The halftime production for Treaty women, I don't know if I've seen the men's one this year, was class. It was just different angles of the games that we hadn't seen before. Close-ups on players and moves they made in the previous week's game and goals, and kind of just different. It was different, and I actually enjoyed nearly watching the halftime as much as I enjoyed watching the match, and that's really difficult to say of LOI TV sometimes. I don't know what your thoughts on that are.
Yeah, I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was very, very good in the sense of everything about it, and like to actually show different clips and different things from to me, it's great, and it's what we want to see from clubs, and it's what we want to see. We want to see the interactive, like we're seeing this year, even from Shells with the inside the match day stuff. Wexford doing that sort of stuff as well. Like the thing about it is, we don't want to see just the players on a Saturday. We want to see the players midweek if they're doing something. Can we see that little bit of personality, that bit of spark? Like, because you have to think about it. When we start first interviewing these type of players, like I remember interviewing players and they were very, very quiet and very, and now we're not getting that as much.
Yeah. Everyone's comfortable talking to whoever it happens to be at the moment. But Treaty for me are just above everyone's improved. Everyone has improved for the most part. But I think sometimes when you see stuff, you just kind of got to give it credit where credit is due. And I just really like what Treaty are doing off the pitch around the women's game. And it's beginning to show on the pitch as well. Like they maybe dropped off the title challenge a little bit, but they still a positive win rate, 4 wins from 7 games. Their scoring goals are like 4th or 5th on the goal scoring list. They're making a few rookie mistakes and maybe getting caught out once or twice, but not nearly as much as we would have expected. And in fact, we were talking off air. We'll get to that later on about their clash against Peamount next week. But the actual game they played this week, Shells come down. They've been champions so often in the last couple of seasons. They're absolutely dripping with quality front to back. And for 75 minutes, Treaty gave as good as they got, and really just kind of could have been, I don't know, could have been ahead at that stage. But Shells, Mackenzie Anthony is just a level above. Like, she's just top notch. And she's a huge addition to Shells. They're going to be in trouble if she was to get injured. I think some of their more experienced players are maybe just struggling to keep with the pace of the game for a full 90 minutes. But Mackenzie Anthony, 2 goals from her at the weekend. She's absolutely killing this league.
Oh, and she's only going to get better, and that's the problem. Apologies if I seem a bit distracted, but that was just ridiculous.
No, apologies about it. Anthony, yeah.
No, it's Mackenzie Anthony for me has just been absolutely sublime. She's been Shell's best player by a mile. She's only going to keep scoring, and the thing about her is the 3rd goal in particular against Treaty for me I really liked. The 2nd goal, yes, it's probably the one time where Treaty's defense has been quite poor, but the 3rd goal was a really, really, really nice finish from her, and like, I think she's going to score buckets of goals in this league and continue to score goals. And like we're talking about we're talking about Iceland stars. Can Kate Mooney score a certain amount of goals? Herself and Kate Mooney tend to blend with each other very nicely. You can see Rebecca Devereux interchanging. it just seems to be she can play with whoever she needs to play with from Michelle's viewpoint, and I think that's probably the most important thing. And like, I just think she's going to go from strength to strength, and I wouldn't be surprised if she does break 20 this year if Shells can't keep her the whole season. But that's the big thing now: is can they keep her? Can they keep her playing? And the only thing from Michelle's viewpoint is she can't go to the UK. That's the only thing, is we know that, because unless she's got a European passport, an Irish passport, getting to the UK is a lot harder now in terms of the points that's needed to get visas for football. So could she end up back at the NWSL? That's the other side of it. And probably, and I think Shells need to enjoy her. Shells fans need to enjoy her while she's here.
You mentioned Rebecca Devereux, but her namesake Rebecca Cook was very impressive. Got the opening goal at the weekend as well. She's been a big addition to that side. Shell's really looking like they could mount a serious title challenge. It's going to take some effort to beat them from whoever it is, whether it's Galway or Athlone or Wexford, who have kind of come back into the conversation in the last couple of weeks.
One of the biggest things I put note down on my notepad today was Shell's use of width.
Yep.
Something we probably haven't seen as much in recent years, where now it's been superb. I think Leah Doyle's been brilliant. Rebecca Cook's goal, very similar to the goal she scored against Bows, where she just come in and struck it. Like, she's been superb for them. And I think if you look at it as well, Perlo's header back across, Pearl probably shouldn't be allowed to header that ball back.
100%. Let's take a trip down to Turner's Cross. Cork hosted Bohemians on Saturday afternoon as well, and I suppose we didn't really know what to expect. I can't remember what we predicted for this on last week's show, but very impressed by a couple of people. I thought Una Foyle had a great game despite the result 2-0 to Bows in the end. I thought Una Foyle did a great game and kept them in it. I was also very impressed with Hannah O'Brien. She had one really good snapshot early on in the game, but she just seemed to be involved in everything that Bows were doing. But really, Bows comes down to that kind of archetypal kind of Irish team. Go for the corners, get the two centre halves up, and we saw both of them get on the score sheet kind of similar. Glancing headers into the far post. Lisa Murphy and Roisin McGovern with the first 36 minutes, and then early in the second half, Lisa Murphy kind of killed the game with a very similar corner came in from the same side and just a little glancing header and just inside the far post. And really, it was a 50-50 game, but Bows just had that little bit of guile and experience to get the 2 points. 2 points they probably badly needed.
Are you following different sports? 2 points?
3 points. Apologies.
For me, from a Cork viewpoint, you can't be conceding goals like that from set plays. Set plays have probably been their biggest Achilles heel, conceding goals from corners. It was a really important win for Bows. They've been so inconsistent, and it ends that run of two defeats to get the win. You're then talking, as you said, Kennedy retiring, going to be another loss for Cork. But for Cork, it's just been one of them seasons. It's been a bit hit and miss, and it's been very difficult for them. And I think when you look at it, there's a lot of work needed there from Frank Kelleher's side.
Yeah, they're currently sitting 10th in the table, which a couple of years ago would have seen them bottom. Of course, 12-team league now, only above Sligo, who got that win the weekend. We'll talk about that in a moment, and DLR Waves, who are just having a nightmare season really this year. They're level with Waterford, new girls. Waterford will be very happy with their introduction to the season so far. Tough day maybe at Wexford at the weekend, just a little bit of class and experience. We might go to that game and have a quick chat about that, because I was very impressed with Waterford in patches here, but really when it came down to it, it was the distribution of Malloy and I'm trying to remember who the other one was. Absolutely fantastic ball in. Aoife Kelly gave a great ball for the Wexford, hit the crossbar very close to the end of the game. So Anya Walsh, another sub, came on. Great effort from Millie Daly. Maeve Williams had done enough just to kind of dispossess Malloy on the edge of the box, but really had no hope of just doing anything outside the box. Couldn't use her hands, and Daly just lifted it across the crowd in front of her, and it bounced into the back of the net. Great effort from the youngster. But Waterford, despite the result, be happy enough to kind of give a good account of themselves. They've been decent in every game nearly this year.
Yeah, Williams pulled off a great save in the first half as well. The goal they did, the first goal they conceded, when you look back at it, like you're probably thinking, can they really be leaving Della Doherty that free for the corner? It's another one we're talking set plays. Like even maybe even Marie O'Sullivan having to deny Jess Lawler against their old team. Like, I think from a Waterford viewpoint, and I just listened to a little bit of Gary Hunt's interview with one of the local radio stations, and he was happy enough with it. He was happy enough with aspects of it. And I think they're showing improvement week in, week out, which is probably the biggest thing you can ask for. You'd probably say, if you're being a little bit critical, Maeve Williams gets caught in no man's land a little bit when she collides with Ella Malloy for the goal. But Millie Daly, what a finish. She's someone who I was told last year to keep an eye on, didn't work out with injuries, but she's definitely someone who's shown massive improvement. And I think from a Wexford viewpoint, you can see everything that they're trying to do, everything that's working well for them. Aoife Kelly is just a joy to watch in the middle of the park. Some of the little pivots and picking up the ball. I think the relationship she's forming with the likes of Ella Malloy, and like, I really do think Wexford could be a top 3 team this year. And the big acid test is when they play like the likes of Shells in a couple of weeks. If they could get a result out of that, are we going to be talking about them potentially finishing top 2? And it's mental when we think of where Wexford are in the last year or so.
Well, if you think in the last 18 months they've lost Nicola Sinnott, they've lost Del Murphy, Del Kennedy. Kylie Murphy has a much smaller role with them now, but you're looking at the players that have come back into that team. The likes of Becky Casson seems to be kind of running everything really in the middle of the field as that kind of holding midfielder. And then she's got just this unbelievable talent around her. Siún Murdoch, we haven't mentioned, she was the one who had the effort that Williams made the save from. She's been impressive in stages. Ella Malloy is just Ella Malloy, but having her back from Sheffield is a huge addition to that squad for this season. You can see it everywhere. Aoife Kelly is a huge signing. I think she's probably going to be, you put her in midfield with those 3 of them, Casson, Kelly, and Malloy pulling the strings in the middle. Like, it's unbelievable what they could achieve this year.
We talked about how good Shamrock Rovers have been at times this year. If Shamrock Rovers still had her in midfield, they'd be so much further forward. And that's the quality of the nature. She'd slot into that Shells team, no problem. She'd slot into any team within the league, absolutely no problem. And the other side of it is she has that option to play centre back as well for you and give you that versatility. But she just looks so comfortable, so natural on the ball, and when she's touring, I think she's really found a home in that Wexford midfield, and Wexford are really starting to click into what the coaching team want there, because it's a completely different style to what we would have seen under Hugh Strong, even under Stephen Quinn. It's completely different, and they're having to sort of
but no more than Shells relying on a lot of maybe girls in their 30s. Wexford have actually just kind of had to, because of the loss of Nicola Sinnott and these are girls coming that have kind of not stepped away but have just aged out, I suppose, really. They now have this really good crop of youngsters coming through, and we're seeing it across all the, like, Treaty have some really impressive locals as well as the imports that they've got there, but there's loads of them coming through. I know we talked about Rachel McGoldrick in Sligo has impressed me anyway when I watched the game at the weekend. You've talked about her previously in terms of the goal she got a couple of weeks previous to that. So there's a really good crop of youngsters coming through who have never known anything except these underage national leagues. They've come in at 15 into these clubs. They've had 3 to 4 years of really good, solid coaching, whether it's with their clubs or with the international squads they're part of. And now we're seeing that bear fruit. And I think sometimes the FAI get a raw deal, and sometimes it's well-deserved. Don't get me wrong. But I think the underage leagues, both male and female, has been a huge addition. I know Shamrock Rovers got stick because they've provided 11 players to I think it's the under-17 boys team this week. But in reality, that's because they're light years ahead on the boys' side anyway, at least in terms of what other teams are offering. Like, they're offering education options. Parents love that. Do you know what I mean? If you're giving your kid you can give your son or daughter football options, but unless you're actually improving them holistically, where the education is a consideration, where they're all of the stuff that you'd expect them to be getting, that maybe isn't quite up to speed in some of the academies. But I think Rovers have set the bar in terms of facilities, in terms of coaching, in terms of investment. Do other clubs have that money? No, but they're going to have to find that money. Like, you look at certain clubs, I'm not going to name names, but certain clubs have doubled their budget over the last 4 or 5 years. They've gone from maybe spending $1 million on their team to over $2 million on their club. And all that money's gone into the first team. Whereas what Rovers did was they made a conscious decision to invest in youth, and it's paying dividends annually with the transfer fees that they're now able to receive. That maybe doesn't exist in the women's game to the same extent, But there has to be something. There has to be a better option than just get them train twice a week and play a game at weekends.
Do you know what's interesting, right? We have an under-19s League of Ireland. Every player who was called in, who was based in Ireland, in the Dave Connell's recent under-19s team that's played, that lost to France to qualify for the Euros, every one of them players who's based at home is in the first team squads of the League of Ireland club. And we look a couple of years ago, and we're sort of saying, and a lot of these players are standout players. Like, I'll name a few, like your Jess Fitzgerald, your Ava Brennans, Katie Keane, Kate Lawley's, Katie O'Reilly, or Shamrock Grove, like these sort of players, and are now playing week in, week out. Whereas when, say, I won't even use Katie McCabe, because Katie McCabe's wave would have been too far forward. But say you're talking a couple of years on from the likes of Alana McAvoy's, they wouldn't have had underage League of Ireland to come and play. They wouldn't have had this opportunity to play a lot of games underage and develop and learn. And there's no doubt about it that they're having a massive knock-on effect. And we're seeing the teams who are being successful. Granted, Shells have a core of probably 4 or 5 older players, but over the last number of years, how many Shells players from Shells Academy teams have played in different League of Ireland teams across the Women's League in the last couple of years? And we're starting to see more and more of these younger players, where when the group that we probably have of about maybe 8 to 10 players across the league who are mid-30s, when they go, the age profile of the league is going to continue to drop.
It's going to absolutely plummet, because the players coming through, no disrespect to the girls in their 20s, mid-20s, but the girls coming through now, and I'm looking, I suppose, my experience, the first under-17 squad, the younger players in that group, I'm thinking Kate Nugent at Sligo, Kate O'Dowd, also quite young. She played with Shells for a couple of seasons, didn't really make much of a breakthrough there, got a couple of appearances in the first team, but they all were like literally a week old enough to be, if they'd been a week younger, they wouldn't have been eligible to play in that initial season. They were all 15 in December, and those two in particular, I know. And they're now, well, Kate Nugent's week in, week out, she's playing for Sligo. Sarah Kiernan, same age group. There's probably 5 or 6 girls in that group that are now playing League of Ireland somewhere, whether it's with Galway or Athlone or wherever. Roisin Malloy would have been in that group as well.
It's also interesting that 15-year-olds are now eligible to play in the league.
Yeah, if they're strong enough and good enough, they should be eligible.
Well, we used to not see that, but now we see the odd crop of 1 or 2 of these really, really young, hungry 15-year-olds coming along, and you're being a 16-year-old. I mean, like, okay, interesting. You're going to remember that name. Whereas it used to be nearly had to be 17 before they could play senior football. And like, the thing about it is as you've just said there, if you're young, if you're good enough, even though you are young, you will stand out in these sort of levels. And
the physicality is less of an issue as well in the girls' game than it is in the men's game, because the girls tend to be physically more developed in terms of their strengths by 16, 17 than they are on the boys' side. A 16-year-old boy versus a man is a much different proposition than a 16-year-old strongly developed girl against an adult women's player. So yeah, I'd let them play if they're good enough and mentally able to cope with the pressure of playing for points every week, because the underage leagues kind of get away with it a lot. When you step up to that senior team, you make a mistake, you're getting hammered for it. Do you know what I mean? Like us talking about you, that's a lot of pressure for a 15 or 16-year-old if they're not quite ready for it. But we've yet to see one who has kind of bombed. Everyone's been so impressive since they've taken that step up. Final game of the weekend last week is the one we started at the top of the show. It's probably the biggest result, probably the most surprising result based on form going into this. But then when you actually analyze it, Peamount aren't having a great year. Sligo, probably not the best side on the night, but the best organised side on the night. Peamount had no answer for that deep defensive block, and Sligo, just when they took their chance, and it wasn't a great chance, but they took it really, really well. We won't be seeing that in a goalkeeping highlights, let's be honest. Amanda Budden is not going to be happy with how that worked out. It's I don't even really know how it happened. Shot comes in from the right-hand side. Great effort. Blocked by Budden, and it kind of goes behind her, lands on her leg, and rolls to the feet of the Sligo player, who just buries it and really doesn't give her much of a chance in terms of saving it. like opportunistic, but
Anna McDaniel will not
yeah,
score an
it
easy
doesn't matter
goal.
how it goes in, but it's a goal. Like, and Sligo, it was the first 20 minutes, and Sligo then just kind of stayed organised. They rode their luck. Could they've had a penalty laid on? I think so. We watched it before we came on live on the show. There was two incidents. There was one, again, I don't name drop individual players, but there was one incident about 20 minutes from the end of the game, and then another one about 7 or 8 minutes from the game. And like, we watched the second one before we came on the show. Duggan takes the ball from a throw in, gets a touch, gets ahead of the player, and Emma Hansberry just comes in, and it's clumsy. Is it malicious? No, but I've seen penalties given for an awful lot less.
I think she realizes herself when she puts the hands up, being like, I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, and it's blessed. Absolutely. And Sligo rode their luck. There was a goal disallowed, and Guevo had the ball in the back of the net. Really impressive effort from her. Long ball through, I think, from Mary Phillips, but I could be wrong on that.
Yeah.
Ball over the top. I think, now it's very difficult to tell, but I think that she just times her run right. And I think Sarah Kiernan is just caught napping a little bit. She steps up after the player makes the move, but it looks like she's offside, but I don't think she was. I think VAR would have given the goal.
Where's TG Carr when you want them with their 50 million camera angles?
I think if you had VAR, that absolutely would have been a legal goal, and it would have been a 1-1 draw. And then the penalty maybe gives Peamount the win. I think Peamount probably with a better side on the night, but they just had no answer to Sligo's structure. And Sligo, well worth their win. Delighted.
Well,
it's great for the league as well that the teams at the bottom are taking points and taking wins, because otherwise it could get, like, I'm looking at DLR's situation, it's hard to see where their next points are coming from, if any.
Like, the thing is, Sligo stood tall.
Yeah.
And like, if you look at even later on that game, even if you just look at, say, if you just look at the highlight package, there's a long range effort from Lucy McCartan that's just like nearly it's let's just have a shot from distance. I do think Bonnie McKiernan in goal has done well for them in the game itself. But like, when you look at Peamount, and I said this to you before we start recording, they've only beaten DLR and Cork this season. It's the only wins they've had this season. Like, the Peamount of old could probably carry or get away without having Ellen Dolan, Freya Healy in their squad, and then Clive Doyle was on the bench. But this Peamount team, unfortunately, they need all three of them players playing and playing well to be getting results week in, week out in this league. The way things are at the minute, and it's been a really, really difficult start to the season for Peamount. Yes, they showed glimpses against Shells, but they've only showed glimpses at times. They haven't really been able to sort of kick on and sort of get a regular run of games. Like, you even look at, yes, they did beat Cork in the All-Ireland Cup as well, but the league form is just a little bit patchy at the minute.
Yeah, let's take a quick look at that league table. Jump it up here. Athlone lead by a single point from Shells, although Galway do have that game in hand against Peamount, which would reduce the gap to the top to 3 should they take 3 points from that clash. Again, but the way this league is going, nothing is absolutely guaranteed. They were level on 13 points with Wexford, with Treaty a point, and Shamrock Rovers a further point behind to complete the top half of the table. Bit of a gap then back towards the Peas and Bohemians on 7 points, with Waterford and Cork City on 6. Sligo, they close that gap a little bit, down to 2 points off. Cork City in 10th place, while DLR still waiting for their first win. It's first points even. It's going to be a challenge for DLR. Can you see them picking up points in the coming weeks?
It's hard. It's hard to see where they are going to pick them up, because if you look at their upcoming league schedule, yes, the Bows game, you'd have to make Bows big favourites in it. The Cork game, it's probably a game where they're going to be at that same sort of level to each other. But like, them and Sligo after it are probably two where you'd say they're the most likely. But DLR will have to improve for me if they are to get any sort of results in games going forward. They'll have to sort of put a bit more of an attacking threat going forward. The one thing I'd like to see is, can they shore up a little bit? I think Naaman and Gassi might be a little bit too high for them. Might have to push her back a little bit and try and shore up any of them gaps, because the goals they're conceding it's just too many goals to be, if you want them to be picking up points in this league.
At the other side, Sligo Rovers only 3 goals this season. That's an even bigger challenge.
Oh yeah, absolutely, it's a challenge. And the thing about it is when it comes to Sligo is Sligo are gonna need to find goals if they are to be successful. But like they've got two draws against a draw against Bows in the league and in the All Ireland Cup. And if you look at where they scored the goals, they scored a goal against Wexford and a goal against Sligo Rovers. Like I'd said to you last week, sort of if Sligo can get to it where they're a lot more tighter at the back, that's a building block for them. I think if they can get a bit of consistency at the back and then look to work on goals going forward, because there's no reason why, if they can shore up at the back, like they were defensively strong, that they couldn't get more nil-all draws, for example, or nick a 1-0 win here or there. And I think if you're them, you'd be happy enough with that. But I can't see Sligo going and scoring 4 and 5 goals in games anytime soon at the minute.
Just to correct it, was Galway. They got the third goal against. They can't score against themselves, although DLR did try that this week. In terms of next week's fixtures, though, some big games down for decision this weekend. Bows and DLR in a Dublin derby in Dalymount at 3 o'clock. Shells host Galway, probably the tie of the round there at 4 o'clock in Talca Park. Cork City and Wexford at 5 p.m. in Turner's Cross. While Shamrock Rovers host Sligo Rovers, clash of the Rovers. We'll just bring these up on the screen while we're chatting at Lone Town then with Waterford at 7:30. Hard to see anything other than home wins in those last two games for Shamrock Rovers and at Lone Town. I suppose if we start with the Shells Galway game, that one could be the most exciting game of the weekend. What's your thoughts on that?
It's mad because it should be seen as a 50-50. But the way Galway are leaking goals and the way Shells have clicked, you would have to say Shells are probably massive favourites in here. Can Galway go and fix the mistakes that they've made defensively? 100%. If they are to be competitive in that game, I think they will need to be really, really strong at the back. I can see Shells being too strong for them. I think Shells will probably win this game 2-0, I think.
Well, if the Shells team from last week shows up along with the Galway team from last week, it'll be more than 2-0. But I don't think Galway will be as bad as they were last weekend in terms of the defensive. And of course, Rubber the Green didn't go Galway's way last week. Who's to say what will happen this week with the decisions in the game? We stick in Dublin, Bows and DLR Waves, two teams struggling this year. Bows have struggled to put the weaker teams, the so-called weaker teams, away. Could this be an opportunity for DLR to get some points?
Oh, 100%. 100% it could be, but the thing about it is if DLR need to be on their A game. The one thing you will say is over the last number of years, even when things haven't been going well, I was that sort of team where DLR can nick a draw, nick a results. I would say both start strong favourites and need to sort of get a bit of momentum going. But if DLR can cut out the errors they're in that game, both should win it. But DLR should be able to be competitive, I think.
Across in the city, Shamrock Rovers and Sligo Rovers do battle at 5 o'clock. Again, we'd expect a home win in this based on form, but then, as Sligo showed last week, never expect anything really. You don't really know what you can get with them on any given day, but you'd expect the likes of Joy Ralph and Anya Gorman, who just seem to be on form at the moment, to fairly put Sligo to the sword.
Let me go one better for you. They got a result last year. They got a draw last year in Tallaght Stadium. I don't think they'll get one this time. I do think Sligo put in a good performance, but I just think Shamrock Rovers should be too strong. We
mentioned it off air when we were having a bit of a debrief beforehand. We didn't mention how good Bonnie McKiernan was at the weekend for Sligo, because she was immense and probably earned them the 3 points in the end with some of the saves she made. Like, how vital is she going to be? I know they've just lost Amber Hardy. Amy Mahon, who had been at the club, is now, I think she's in Peamount, actually. So they haven't really got a ready-made backup in goal that has experience of playing in goal at this level. She's going to be key for them.
Massive. And the thing about it is, I'll say this, I think she's more than capable. I think she's more than capable of actually delivering. And she's had a little bit of a run where she's been in and out over the last year or so. Herself and Amber Hardy have sort of chopped and changed a little bit at times, but she's a top keeper, and I think she'll definitely fill that number 1 jersey quite well for Sligo, and I wouldn't have any concerns in the goalkeeping department for Sligo at all.
Peamount down the road just hosting Treaty United. You talked about this off air, and you reckon it won't be popular, but you think Treaty are the favourites going into this game based on
and I never thought I'd say that. Just based off the fact that Peamount have only beaten Cork and DLR, and DLR were well in that game against them as well in the league game in PRL Park. I'd have a lot of concerns about the consistency of that Peamount team. I would say, I'm going to say Treaty United are going to get 3 points.
Wow, it's a big statement. Particularly the 5 o'clock kickoff, Cork City and Wexford down in Turner's Cross. Wexford on form at the moment, and as we mentioned, that midfield capable of ripping apart like really, really good teams. Cork struggling. They had a bright start, but it kind of faded off in the last few weeks. Colleen Kennedy gone now is a big loss to them as well. Has that kind of early season optimism faded, and could they be in for a long day on Saturday evening?
It'll be a difficult day. It'll be a very difficult day. But the thing about it is Cork have shown they've scored 10 goals in 7 games. They've shown that they're capable of hitting the net. But the problem is can they be in the game to be a threat? That's the concern. And like I think Wexford are just going to be too strong in this game. I wouldn't be surprised if Wexford score 3 or 4 in this game either.
Finally, the champions at Athlone. They host New Girls Waterford. Waterford have probably superseded everyone's expectations of them this year. They've picked up a point per game, 6 points on the board after 6 games. It's respectable for any side, but particularly for the new girls in the league with little to no experience through the team, and only maybe a handful of players who've played in the league before. It's hard to see anything other than an Athlone win here, but would you put it past Waterford to sneak a draw, maybe even challenge for a win?
No, I can't see Waterford challenging for a win. But the thing about it is I can see Waterford taking another step forward from what they've done in recent games. I can see them 100% doing that. But I just think the way Athlone are at the minute, if Shell score 5, or say, just say for example, Shell scored 5, I would expect Athlone to want to go out and score 6. And I nearly think it's going to be a case that we're going to see that over the next couple of weeks is whatever Shell's do, Athlone trying to do it. Like, I just think Athlone could be, and I hate saying this, but Athlone could be the team that do rip Waterford apart, and I hope they don't. But just with the firepower and the form that they have, that will be my little bit of a concern this weekend. But I definitely expect Waterford to continue showing improvement going forward. Of
course, Shells and Athlone do meet next month in the league in Talca Park, 14th of June. That is one to keep an eye out for anyone who is following the league. But this weekend, if you had to pick one to go to, what's your game of the week?
Shells Galway.
Will you be there?
Yeah, I'll be there.
Well, that's an added attraction to go to the game. People get to meet you as well. In terms of surprises, where do you think is the biggest banana skin that we might find this week? Did Sligo get a result on the form they're on at the moment to dampen Shamrock Rovers' run? DLR?
I don't see major surprises this weekend. I think to a lot of people, Treaty would be a surprise, but to me, it wouldn't be.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's very, very fair. Well, listen, that is it for this week. I do have a little favor to ask you before you leave us. We are almost to 1,000 followers on YouTube. We would love, if you're watching this on YouTube, or even if you're not watching on YouTube, do go to the Final Whistle page or just click the subscribe button just below us. We want to get to that 1,000 mark. It does open a few doors for us in terms of the growth of the channel and the growth of the show, in terms of getting a bit of money to help pay some of the bills. So we do this out of the goodness of our heart, and we would like a little bit of help on that front. So if you're enjoying the show, maybe even if you're not, do give us a little follow. But if you're not following the show, you shouldn't be here. So that's all right. But we love your support and love your help to get us over that 1,000 mark and just kind of kick us on to the next level on the show. For everyone who's joined us this week, thank you as always. It's been an absolute pleasure to have your company for the last 50 odd minutes or so. We'll be back next week with a look at all this weekend's action from the other side. We will talk to you then. Chat to you soon.